Every day we wake up, move around, and accept a basic premise. Space is a container. Up, down, left, right, forward, back. We assume these three spatial dimensions are the absolute boundaries of reality. Theoretical physics paints a different picture. The standard model operates in 3 dimensions plus time, but the math of string theory requires 10 dimensions to remain consistent. Move up to M theory, and the equations demand exactly 11. For decades, classical physics relied on an anthropic argument to explain this. In 1917, physicist Paul Ehrenfest demonstrated that planetary orbits are only stable in exactly 3 dimensions. We exist in 3D space because if gravity operated across 4 or 5 dimensions, our solar system would be unable to hold itself together. That explains why organisms like us can survive. It does not explain why 3-dimensional space exists in the first place. Science has taken a biological survival condition and mistaken it for a structural law of the universe. To decode those 11 dimensions, we need a different framework. Think of an ant crawling across a flat sheet of paper. Its biological hardware maps that world onto a 2-dimensional coordinate system. Roll that paper into a cylinder. The ant walks in a perceived straight line, unable to process the curve. We are in the same position as that ant. If a 4th or 5th spatial dimension is folded around our planet, we walk in our perceived straight lines, blind to the curvature of the space we inhabit. The observer-dependent theory of everything, or ODTOE, argues that dimensions are not physical rooms in a cosmic house. An observer perceives exactly as many dimensions as its internal processing allows it to actualize. Space is not intrinsically 3-dimensional. Rather, the human observer is a 3-dimensional entity, projecting its own biological limits onto reality. Dimensionality has a strict definition in this theory. It is the number of independent, recursive feedback loops an observer can internally process. This chart maps these internal loops, starting at level 0 with the atom. An atom responds to electromagnetic fields, taking an input and creating an output, but it builds no internal model of the world. It has 0 recursion. At level 1, the biological cell emerges. A cell observes its environment and uses chemical feedback to alter its own behavior. This is one layer of recursion. Level 2 is a multicellular organism. A nervous system allows the creature to process its environment and then process its own response to that environment. 2 layers. At level 3, we reach human consciousness. You observe the environment, you observe your reaction to it, and you realize that you are observing. This is a triple-nested feedback loop. Mathematically, 3 dimensions are the minimum required for a closed loop to link around itself without intersecting. In lower dimensions, a feedback loop would be forced to cross its own path, short-circuiting the signal. This topological necessity makes 3D space the required arena for a mind capable of self-reflection. If human biology caps out at level 3 observation, we have a massive mathematical gap. M theory insists the universe needs 11 dimensions to function. We have to account for the remaining 8. This diagram shows how ODTOE decodes that number. 11 breaks down into 2 specific pillars, exactly 9 structural levels of observation, scaling from the cell up to the entire cosmos, plus 2 directional arrows representing the forward and reverse flow of the observation operator. Standard string theory claims the missing dimensions are compactified, crumpled up to the Planck length, so small that our instruments cannot measure them. Through this theory's lens, compactification is not about physical size. These higher dimensions are simply invisible to a level 3 operator. It is the same reason your eye cannot see ultraviolet light. The data is present, but your biological hardware cannot read it. You exist simultaneously within all 11 structural layers of reality. Your conscious experience is just restricted to a 3-dimensional slice. When scattered elements synchronize, their collective coherence inevitably grows. As matter links together, new dimensions of reality unfold. The background noise of the universe begins to take on the shape of a measurable pattern. The movement from a level 3 individual to a level 4 collective requires a synchronization of observers. This shift represents a jump in complexity, where the group begins to process information that is invisible to the individual components. We see evidence of this shift in the emergence of collective knowledge. In the mid-19th century, Charles Darwin spent decades meticulously mapping out the theory of natural selection. At the same time, half a world away, Alfred Russel Wallace arrived at the identical biological framework. ODTE interprets these synchronistic discoveries as a level 4 configuration, a collective observer accessing shared information that a single level 3 mind could not reach alone. At level 5, we reach planetary coherence. James Lovelock proposed the Gaia hypothesis, observing that billions of species, the oceans, and the atmosphere interact as a single self-regulating entity. In this framework, history is a physical mechanism. Matter is compounding its coherence over billions of years, building the capacity to perceive higher levels of its own structure. This scaling law allows us to interpret the universe's greatest anomalies. What we call dark matter may be the gravitational footprint of level 7 observers, galactic-scale structures operating completely beyond our three-dimensional horizon. Similarly, the accelerated expansion we call dark energy represents the pressure of the vast unrealized potential states at level 8. We measure the effect, but the source remains hidden from our level of observation. This scales up to level 9. At this threshold, the entire cosmic loop perfectly observes itself into existence, establishing the unified laws of physics that we observe everywhere at once. But level 9 is not a ceiling. The theory outlines observation octaves. When the system hits the 9th level, the scale resets at a meta level, dimensions 10 through 18. It generates an infinite fractal of multiverses. The universe does not have an ultimate container, and there is no final dimension. We are holding a three-dimensional flashlight in an infinitely layered dark, waiting for our collective coherence to grow.